Today, we continue with the book from Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. So, it was 1998, Harlem, New York City. At least there were 3 heavily armed fugitives were held up inside a 27th-floor apartment. And there was SWAT team arrayed behind Chris in the hallway. On the other side, the snipers were on the rooftop of near buildings, ready to take any action. It was a very, very intense situation. Actually, it was so intense that the fugitives inside the apartment freaked out. They had been silenced for over 6 hours. So nobody knows what's going on the other side. So it was a very difficult situation for the negotiators. After all, how can you negotiate at all when your counterparty don't talk, right? So let's see how Chris deal with that situation. So first, let's see what happens when we are emotional with our body. When I say emotional, in this case, I mean scared and terrified. When we are terrified, the blood in our body goes to our arms and legs. Because it's in our DNA, in order to survive in a very horrible situation many years ago, when we face the danger, we need to choose to fight or run away. That's why we call it fight or flight mode. Either way, we need the blood in our limbs. In that situation, we have less blood for our brain, which we really need those blood and energy to think. So with less blood, less energy, we could not really think biologically when we are scared. Another thing is, according to some research, the part of our brain which is responsible for rational thinking is very less active when we are emotional. That also explains why we cannot reasoning or why we cannot listen when we are scared. And last but not least, remember we like to tell the story to ourselves, especially when we are horrified. We like to imagine the consequence and exaggerate it. That is the worst part. We tell the story in the most horrible way. Eventually we scare ourselves even more. And Chris is aware of that. So in that situation, he knew the fugitives was in that emotional state who are so terrified that they could not even speak. So how can you speak and negotiate when your counterparty is so emotional in that state? The first thing he needs to do is to calm them down. And the technique he recommends to do is called labeling. So what is labeling? Labeling is when we are talking with someone, we spot feelings, right? And then we give a name to that feelings. Then we calmly, respectfully repeat that feeling back to them. That process is called labeling. Why do we do that and what's the benefit? There's some very obvious one. The first is, when we label, we simply convey this message. I'm listening. I heard you, and I understand you. On the other side, no matter what, but when I feel that I'm being heard, someone is listening to me, someone understands me, I calm down and I'm more engaged in that conversation with that person. And the second, when we have an emotion and when we give that emotion a rational name, it's like a little trick. We take the focus of their brain from the emotional part to the rational part, which is exactly what we want to do, right? We want that person to be less emotional and more rational. And another thing is, when we take every single scared and horrified emotion and put them on the table, label them, we stop people from exaggerating because there's nothing to think about, to imagine anymore. Everything is here. We're scared, we are worried, we are terrified. That's it. We know that. No need to exaggerating in the back of your brain anymore. So by labeling people's emotion, we can help them to calm down. We can help them to be a bit more rational. So finally, the most important part, how do we label, is actually quite simple. No matter we phrase it as a statement or question, it usually begins with very similar words. And it goes like, it seems you are scared. It looks like you are concerned. it sounds like you don't want to go back to jail, right? If you pay attention here, I didn't use I think you're scared, or I guess you're scared, or I heard you're scared. I didn't say I, because I don't want to take attention away from the emotion, because the point is to label the emotion, not label myself. So be more objective. Use it seems like rather than I think you are. Another thing is, labeling invites a response, or we encourage people to be more responsive with our statement, with our labeling. Imagine this, when I say, it seems like you are concerned about the situation. When you heard that, it's natural to think, oh, I'm not concerned, I need to explain. Or yes, I'm concerned and here's why. So usually it's not very natural for people to think, it's now my turn to talk after someone labeled my emotion. So after we label someone's emotion, pause a little bit, give it a few seconds, even longer, however long it needs for that person to process, to think, to switch their brain from the emotional part to the rational part. So pause a little bit after you label someone's emotion. Now we know the theory behind labeling. Let's go back to the story. So what Chris does was actually very simple, just like we talked about. He labeled emotion even though he could not see the people because the door was shut. He said repeatedly, it seems you are scared. It seems that you don't want to get caught or get shot. It looks like you're worried that the moment you open the door, we're going to come in with gun blazing. It seems like that you believe when you open the door, there will be a bloodbath. Over and over again. And the pause with a couple minutes even in between and let them think. It's very difficult to do that when you cannot even see the other party. But with the help of time, eventually a woman opened the front door slightly and slowly with a hand in front of her. And then he continued to label, to talk in that way. Eventually, 3 fugitives came out. Like when they asked them, like after all these hours, you didn't say anything, why suddenly you came out? And they said, like, we were so scared and terrified. We don't want to get caught. We thought we were going to get shot if we opened the door. But Chris, you were there talking to us all the time, even though we don't respond. Eventually, we trusted you, and you calmed us down. So we know you won't go away also. That's why we opened the door eventually. Let's do a quick summary. So today we talked about labeling. Why do we need labeling? Because sometimes people are so terrified, scared, or emotional that they cannot really be rational and carry on a normal conversation. That's why we need to deal with emotion first. And labeling is really good technique for that. It's also very simple. It goes like, it seems you're scared. It looks like you don't want to get caught. It sounds like you are terrified and concerned about the situation. So with this simple phrase and some pause in between them, we can help people to at least feel that I've been listened. Someone cares about my feelings. Someone can even repeat back my feeling back to me. And also that can help us to stop exaggerating the situation in our brain. And eventually the labeling can help us to calm down and can switch our brain from the emotional part to the rational part. And then we can carry on a normal conversation. Alright, so that's all I have today. If you like the content, please click like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time.